Hi, and welcome to RLab 3. This week we'll talk about exploratory data analyses on categorical variables. And just start off with a little review. An exploratory data analysis, or generally it's abbreviated as EDA, is just a brief summary of one or more variables. And for our class, as with last week's homework, an exploratory data analysis is basically a summary of the study design, the scope of inference, kind of quantitative summaries on any of the variables involved, and graphical summaries of the variables. As far as the study design, the main things we look for is like, what is the population? That's the group of people or objects we want to learn about. Then, what is the specific sample? That's the group of people or objects that we actually look at. And then, is this an experiment or an observational study? And specifically, which variables are we looking at? The scope of inference is essentially what conclusions we can make out of the sample. And there are two basic types of inference: population inference and causal inference. The population inference, otherwise known as generalizability, can be claimed if we have random selection from the population. If the sample is then randomly assigned to treatment and control groups, then we can talk about causal inference. So a sample could have both. It could have just one. A sample could have neither of these. And it all depends on how things were randomly selected or randomly assigned. And while sample size is important overall, especially in terms of the accuracy of your study, scope of inference is the main factor for scope of inference is randomization. Now for categorical variables, means and standard deviations are just not possible. I mean, if you have like colors like red, blue, green, you can't really add them up and divide by whatever the count is. It doesn't really make sense. So we don't deal with means and deviations. What we deal with are frequencies, and specifically frequency tables and contingency tables. We deal with counts and proportions. As far as graphs go, you can compute a bar plots. If you're dealing with two variables at once, two categorical variables, we can also look at mosaic plots. And as always, after you do a graph, there should be a brief description. Again, brief description. Alright, so let's look at one first. Let's talk about a single variable. For a single categorical variable in R, the two main commands we'll deal with is table and bar plot. The table command is nice for a categorical variable in that it'll give you the frequency table of the categories. And if you take that command and put it into a bar plot command, you'll get a bar plot. So let's take a data set, and this one is called the Magnet Schools data set. An article in the winter 2003 issue of Chance magazine reported on the Houston Independent School District's Magnet School program. Of the 1,755 qualified applicants, 931 were accepted, 298 were waitlisted, and 526 were turned away for lack of space. Now, from here on to the end of the quarter, most of the data sets I'll give you will be in terms of CSV files. So what is a CSV? A CSV file looks like this. It's basically like an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet spreadsheet. And in fact, Excel and Google Sheets can be saved as CSV. CSV stands for comma separated values. It's just basically a universal spreadsheet that works for just about anything. Any spreadsheet should be able to save as a CSV file. Anyway, R has this command called read.csv, and what that does is you plug in the website that that the CSV file is saved on, you can upload it into R. You don't have to worry too much about this command. I'll pretty much just give you the commands overall. But it's just basically we give it a name. The name of the data set in this case is Magnet Schools. And then I'll have equal read.csv. And then inside the parentheses and quotation marks is the website. So let's go ahead and try that. So here's R. I already have the command kind of written right here in the upper left box. If I run it, and I was running, it's loading up the data set. And you can see now the data set appears in the upper right. It says Magnet Schools has 1,755 observations and one variable. Now if you want to look at how it looks like in R, I click on it, the upper right, Magnet Schools, you can see here's the data set. Essentially my variable is decision, and they're either accepted, they turned away, waitlisted. And if you scroll down, you'll get all 1,755 of them. So that also, when I give you a data set, I'll usually give you a codebook that goes with it. A codebook is just basically a description of the variables of that data set. In this case, there is only one variable called decision. And that's really the decision on the students in minutes, whether they were accepted, waitlisted, or turned away. As far as the study design, the population here are just students that were applying to Magnet School. I would say qualified students that applied to the Magnet School. The sample self is the 1,755 qualified applicants. This is an observational study. There's no assignment of treatment to this, so observational study. And the variable interest is whether or not the decision about the students in minutes to a Magnet School. Population, for instance, can't be really claimed. I mean, there's no mention about random selection. And causal inference can't be claimed because it's an observational study. There's no mention of random assignment. So in this case, there's no inference we can claim here. As for some commands we can try, the first one is the str command. That's really optional, not really that important for us. If you deal with a lot more complex data sets, str is a nice one. It gives you the structure of the data set, where it'll give you kind of a brief. It'll describe all the variables of your data set. We just have one, so the str parentheses and then the name of the data set inside Magnet Schools will give you the structure, the variable of there. More important is the next one, table. If you have table and then parentheses, put your data set. If it's a single variable in there, it'll give you the frequency table. You can even take that table command and divide by the sample size of 1,755, and it'll turn into a relative frequency table. As for creating a bar plot, what we do is use the command bar plot in parentheses, plug in that table Magnet Schools, or they'll give you a bar plot. And if you plug in the divide by 1,755, you'll get a relative frequency bar plot. So let's see that in action. So first off, if you want to try str, Magnet Schools. Again, it says there's 1,055 observations in one variable. You can also find that in the upper right corner. And then below that, it'll list the variables. We just have one. And it's just decision is the variable. Factor is R's way of saying it's a categorical variable. There's 3 levels. That's accepted, turned away, or waitlisted. You can try the summary command. Go summary Magnet Schools, and essentially you get a frequency table. Accepted, turned away, waitlisted. A better command is the type table. I guess in terms of frequency tables, it's about the same. But you'll get accepted, 931, turned away, 526, waitlisted, 298. If you take that command and divide by, see the sample size is 1,755, you can see that we get proportions now. So 53% of the students were accepted, about 30% were turned away, about 17% were waitlisted. If you want to create a bar plot, just type bar plot, and then we enter that table, name of the data set, Magnet Schools. And you see there is the bar plot in the lower right. Nothing that exciting. Accepted was the most common category. Turned away was next. The fewest students were waitlisted. If you want to turn it into a relative frequency, just put in divide by 1,755, the sample size after the table command. And now you see that you have relative frequencies now on the left.